Who will ask the first question? You will? There are three hands. I should call Asar.
Ladies take priority. And she's a very kind and considerate, compassionate woman. And naturally, when she sees natural disasters such as the earthquake in Mexico and the volcano in Colombia recently, she's very disturbed over these things. And she's asked me to ask you why it seems these disasters happen to people that are least capable of dealing with these types of situations. Least capable of what? Dealing with these types of situations.
Well, I think this question needs to be rectified first before I begin to answer, and this rectification of the question in fact is a part of the answer, because it shouldn't be looked at from the angle your mother is looking at it. The fact is that there are two phenomena running parallel. One, the phenomena of nature, which is completely, normally I should say, not completely, normally dissociated with the phenomena of religion. And it should not be studied in solitary events. It should be studied in a grand whole, according to the large scheme of things. So let's first dissociate these two phenomena. Let's first understand the phenomena of nature. What part do the volcanoes play in the making or unmaking of the nature of this world? So when you study the phenomenon of earthquakes in the larger context, then you come to realize that their benefit is much greater than the harm done by them. And the harm done by them has no religious background normally. Because when they did harm to dinosaurs alike. And it was not just to human beings. They were not a special selection of the earth. It happened, and whenever it happened, the life around close to the active what you call mouth of the earthquake, or the seat of the earthquake, whichever thing was close to it was destroyed, or damaged. So this is a phenomenon to be seen in this light first and to be understood. As I have said, in relation to God, this should be weighed as far as the benefits and the damages are concerned, and if the benefits are overwhelmingly greater, then there is no objection against the scheme of things. Because it is impossible as we study nature to create something good without a shadow on the opposite side. Goodness in fact is a positive value, and the positive values, sometimes by their absence and sometimes by casting a negative shadow, also produce a sort of evil. This is to be understood basically before you understand the scheme of things in nature. For instance, you say heat is good, but to what extent, and where, and how? All these questions are relevant. Otherwise, you just can't say heat is good, because all these questions looked at from a different angle would give you a negative reply. Heat is not good. For instance, heat applied in the form of fire to one's clothing is not good. But heat applied in the form of a source of energy for cooking or for running the locomotives and other things is all good. Heat is bad. Additional heat is bad when you are suffering from 120 degrees Fahrenheit in Pakistan and still more is coming, and there is no relief for that. And heat is so most welcome here when in England nowadays. So heat is the positive value created by God. How this value is used and employed, that could decide whether this was good or bad. So look at it in small incidents here and there. Still the answer will be rather confused. In some places you will consider it to be good, in some other places to be bad. But when you broaden the canvas and look at the nature of energy and what role it played in the making of man or the development of the universe, then you will come to realize that heat is good. And the damage or the evils created by heat were just small localized incidents where heat was misemployed or excessively used. So this is what I mean by studying the nature of things at large. So phenomena of volcanoes is so highly important for the development of the continents as such, for not only the developments of certain things, but for their safe burials for a certain time. Otherwise they will be destroyed. The petrol, as we say it, and the coal and so many other minerals which are being utilized widely by human beings. They are all the results of volcano phenomena. And take that away and then weigh put on the other scale put these benefits on one scale and put the losses caused to some human life somewhere on the other scale and judge for yourself then. Would you rather not have a few hundred or a few thousand people killed and also forego the benefits of the earthquakes? That is the question. So when you come to see it from this line, from this angle, then suddenly you will realize that if there were no volcanoes, there would be no Colombia. There would be no civilization at all. And if there were a civilization, it would be hard put today for the lack of energy. Because all the part of the storage of energy which the volcanoes have played for your sake is so immense that without their effort, you will not find the world today as it is. There will be no petrol, for instance, buried anywhere. It would have been evaporated long, long ago. In fact, it wouldn't have come to being. Because unless large sources of wood and other material, organic material, were buried deep under the forces of volcanoes, they would not turn into oil. So many other benefits you are drawing from volcanoes, you ignore to observe them. You think they are for granted. You think you're right. They had to be there. And you just simply don't notice them and don't thank God for their presence. And slight misbehavior on the part of volcanoes, and you start asking questions and addressing God. What is this? Why this suffering? These poor people, they didn't do anything. That sort of thing is because of lack of proper understanding of things, lack of larger perspective. We are so used to observing small things on a smaller canvas, dissociated with the whole phenomenon. Also, we are used to accepting the good things without thanks. And the bad things you turn, rather nasty and kick back. So, with understanding of this larger design, now we come to the second aspect of this. Why only those people who could not fend for themselves, could not defend against these habits? Even so, earthquakes come in Japan, where people are highly capable of escaping the damages or minimizing the damages at least. If they can't escape the damage, they have been very much controlled now. And as these earthquakes occur in the most highly developed country of the world, North America, and they are expecting another very dangerous earthquake somewhere in California, perhaps near San Francisco. So this is not the correct answer, and it has to be rectified. Earthquakes don't follow this line. They don't know who is living in the vicinity. There is no way of finding out. So this phenomenon is completely dissociated. Who suffers? But sometimes this phenomena is also related to a religious phenomenon. For instance, when Allah forecasts the occurring of devastating earthquakes to someone's servants who has no means at his disposal to find out what earthquake is, to understand the very nature of earthquake, or to predict where the earthquake would occur next time. So if the man whom Allah addresses and gives the information that particular information that earthquakes are going to destroy large areas around you, plus the information that you will be saved and your followers will be saved, the same natural automatic phenomena suddenly acquires a religious character. It's no longer a dissociated phenomena with man's affairs. It becomes a very much a matter of human affair, a human interest, and from religious point of view. So this is exactly what happened when Hazrat Masih predicted certain earthquakes on certain periods of the year. And when they did follow, so many people accepted and believed, but so many others just mocked at this. They said, look here, he is made a fool of you. Earthquakes do come and go, and they happen ordinarily. They have nothing to do with the truthfulness of anybody. So why are you scared? Just ignore this. But they forgot that those who know when the earthquakes come, they have large laboratories, they have means at their disposal. And somebody living in Qadian of that age, who had never studied even topographical geography, not to mention the other geography, which is called next geography, what? The geography which deals with the subject of earthquake. Geography is divided into two parts. One is the topographical, where we read the maps and things, and the other goes into the philosophy of things, how the forces move. But anyway, Hazrat Masih I'm talking to him. He had absolutely no knowledge of geography beyond the fact that he understood which way Mecca lay, because he used to face anyway in the direction of Mecca. And suddenly he starts speaking of earthquakes and certain particular period of the year, and they would be so devastating that it would shake the earth, and they would shake the earth and cause huge damages, which would be memorable. And they followed exactly as he predicted, and also with the condition that everything would be saved. So this phenomena acquires a religious nature when connected with such predictions. Listener is said, 2 questions from his mother have been given questions already. Yes.
Your second question is noticed, if a person sincerely believes in God and tries to lead a good life, why does it matter what religion they choose to follow?
If one believes in God, yes please. I think I have already spoken on this subject a few days ago. when Christian lady, in fact, asked this question from in a different way. You can have access to that cassette and listen to the answer. But I will deal with it shortly, briefly. What is religion? That is the point to be understood. Religion tells you the way to God. So if you are on good terms with God, if you love Him already, why must you avoid the knowledge of way to God? So when we say religion is important, this is the meaning of it. If God is important to somebody, religion has to be important to him. And when you decide to go, for instance, to Huddersfield from London, you have to find out the way. And if there are more than one ways, more ways than one, then you have to find out the best way. The well-kept way, the broader way, where there will be less traffic, less hazard and so on, and which will be smooth and will take you easily, convey you to that goal. If you find, say, 101 ways leading from here to Huddersfield, and some of them have been long abandoned, so long abandoned that there is more likelihood for you to be, to meet with accidents on the way, to be stranded somewhere, or if to reach at all, instead of reaching with your car, to reach ultimately on foot after a very long period of suffering. And there is also an autobahn available, most modern, well-built and well-preserved. Which will you prefer? It will be very stupid for a man who is following the oldest path to a place to say that of course I am going to the same place. Why should I follow you? Why should I choose the better way? It's already there, I am following that path. The logic which they present is exactly of the same nature. If God is important, then the name of the religion becomes completely unimportant. The most important factor to be decided is which religion, whatever the name, is the latest revelation of God and is true, is in reality revealed by Him. This has to be judged, of course. An authentic religion, when it is proved to be from God, has to be judged according to its revelation and according to its claims. Whether it claims to be a superior religion or not, that has to be there, because otherwise, without a claim, you will not be able to judge the relative values of various religions. So from that angle, Islam is a religion which claims to be a universal religion. That is one new factor added to the world of religions. Categorically, in clear terms, it says that Islam is a religion which is neither Eastern nor Western. It is a common factor between humanity. It speaks of a God who is beneficent to all, who has been sending His prophets to all religions. So when it makes the claim that it is a religion of all, it's a religion of all the peoples of the earth, it verifies that claim. It supports its claim. Not that you attribute things to Islam, it speaks of the whole subject and discusses all the details. So that is one superiority of Islam over other religions. And all other religions, The Christians, when they hear it, they say, no, Christianity is also for the whole world. St. Paul said, yes, it is also for the Gentiles and everybody. We say, all right, he may have said it, but first of all, prove it from Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. And even that would not be enough. That would be just a claim. Show us where Christianity has spoken of the entire world as such, and the various peoples, and a unifying factor between them, and authenticated their religions and told us of a phenomena that everywhere in the world God has been sending prophets, so the all mankind is one and the same. And also where it has given a teaching which is universal. So just a claim in itself will not be enough. But to begin with, you have to find claims first from various religions and then start comparing. So it becomes a long, complicated phenomenon. It's not as easy as that I love God and that's enough. If you love a thing and that thing is not with you, you have to find it. Just by loving something, you don't get it. And the more important the commodity is, more effort you have to put in it. So this is why, this is just a sentimental question. I love God and I'm living with God, that's enough. Why a religion? It is wrong. To love God is to love the most inaccessible thing in the world in one way. Being possessed, it is farthest away beyond your comprehension because you are His creation and the creation can't understand the Creator perfectly. Unless the Creator Himself tells the creation, this is me. So with this relationship, how can you understand Him without His help? And when Allah helps through His messengers whom He chooses for this purpose. Not that He tells everything to everybody. So this is why you are always dependent on the teaching of religions, and for religions you are dependent on neutral comparisons. Not that you are born in a religion so you must follow it and it will have to be good, because you have to make a very neutral comparison and just comparison between religions. And the reason why is simply this, as I have mentioned, that paths are so many, the object is one, and one has to be choosy about the paths. Life is short, so one is also in a hurry. So without wasting time, one should try to reach a path immediately, as soon as possible. Now, this also raises another question which is not raised by your mind, but which is very relevant. It has to be asked at this stage at least. The question is that if you start comparing all the religions as I have mentioned, an old lady or a young lady, whatever the age be of your mother, how can she afford to compare all the claims of all the religions in the world which have their teachings spread over various languages in various countries? And each religion sometimes has such profuse literature that even for the followers, and in the majority of cases, even for the followers of that religion, it's not possible to read even 1/10 of what is said or written about it. So, apparently I made a very simple answer. All I read and compare, that when you reach this stage of actual comparison, you find yourself in great difficulty. It's impossible as if to extricate from this. Answer to that is also given by Islam. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in is a simple answer which is taught to us 5 times, many times each time in our prayers. And this is the general answer applicable to all human beings, not only to Muslims. If she is in the right frame of mind, if she really wants to search, then she should present her case plainly, honestly, simply to God. Tell Him, here I am. All right, I agree that maybe I was born in the wrong religion, and maybe I have revealed some latest versions of most wonderful religions. But how can I judge? I am not in a position. I don't have life enough ahead of me to be able to judge with a fair comparison all the various religions of the world. So lead me, guide me. The Surah Fatiha tells us the prayer, and you can just tell her the translation of this bit. praise God as she may, as she understands Him, in her own way, but then concentrate on this prayer. The answer is already given in the Holy Quran. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. People can't be led to me. It's impossible for them. Allah knows it. He says no. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا, those who strive in our path, who honestly make an endeavor to reach us, it is we who lead them. It is not in their power to be led. So as this possibility now is shifted to God, how easy and how simple. So those who choose to be scholarly, who want to judge the merits of religion from education and teaching's point of view, they can choose a difficult path for them as they please. But for the simple-minded, for the honest, for those who just have faith and know that Allah will not waste them, He loves them, this is the best way to reach Him, the most wonderful course one can adopt. So you can advise your mother to follow this course. And also pray for her yourself, to assist her.
I have a question from my eldest daughter. She's 9 years old.
9 years old?
Yes. And she asked me to ask you, if God knows everything and He knows what we're going to say, why should we pray 5 times a day?
If she would not pray, Allah would not know. Because Allah does not know what is not. Allah knows what is. You know what I mean? Allah knows because she was to pray. If she were not to pray, then Allah would not know it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
We find many Christian evangelists in North America making such claims that if you choose their brand of Christianity, that all your troubles and sufferings and misfortunes will disappear. But through the teachings of Islam, we know this is different. Can you please explain the concept of suffering and spiritual advancement?
This question requires a very, very big answer, in fact. You know, it covers so many fields of human interest covered by religion. Just for a religion to claim that you come and follow us and your sufferings will disappear is not enough. Because every religion claims this. Come for peace. So the claim is there, and as I said earlier, there has to be a claim to verify. If a religion does not claim a thing, then nobody will care to verify that thing which is not even claimed. So as far as claim goes, we can agree to the fact that the claim has been put forward. But by whom? The followers or the religion itself? The claim of the followers does not mean anything. It is very essential that one should ask the authority of the book on whose behalf they are speaking. So when you ask for the credentials of this claim, then you are led to the scriptures, their language. They are open to interpretation. And also there are so many other things which you come by when you study the scriptures in that relationship, that the shape of the question will be entirely changed. It will no longer be the same claim. Why did Christ suffer? And so much. Why did his followers suffer and so much? Why couldn't he leave their pains and their suffering? Why should much lesser people of today following Christianity are making claims which were never made by the founders of Christianity?
And what does suffering play? What part does suffering play in the scheme of Allah's things? And what is suffering in reality and its relative values? And is that not true that sometimes suffering becomes pleasure, and lack of suffering becomes suffering in hell? All in relative terms. If a child is suffering, whom the mother watches, and can't help him in any way, her suffering will be much, much more than for a mother who suffers for the child and relieves him of some suffering. So just to say suffering is not enough. The religious people suffer for the sake of higher ideals and higher values, so apparently they go through the suffering, yet they enjoy that suffering that is unique to them. So suffering is not an easy, simple word. It has to be understood in relative terms. In various situations it will have to be interpreted differently. And just the claim that you come and your suffering goes, this claim is not made by religious books, because they call you to suffer for a cause, in fact. They invite you to suffering. Those who were invited by Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, because of accepting that invitation, they started suffering. And the same was true of Abraham, and same was true of Noah and the prophets after him. And it was true in its maximum of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's true today or ever here. For an Ahmadi to become an Ahmadi is to suffer. So here our claim is exactly the opposite. We say this is the sign of truth, that we call first towards suffering and people accept it. And seeing eye to eye the suffering, they accept it. That means they are honest and they are true. They are not just easy seekers of comforts. Unless they have faith, a higher and superior faith in something, they can't suffer. So suffering is a proof of truth rather than otherwise. So this claim has to be first verified and thrashed out, and then ultimately whatever is left of it, that can be handled so easily. Yes, please.
Well, I think we should give someone else a turn.
Maybe one?
We give someone else a turn now?
It's up to you.
No, I'll give someone else a turn.
It's all right.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Because you can't come here daily, you know. So those who live here and have opportunities to come and meet me so often, I wanted them to show patience for your sake and give you opportunity. Please. He will also come from somewhere else, so I have given him a chance.
I want to get some information about institution of mysticism in Islam. And also about...
You want to ask about what?
Mysticism, Sufism.
What is the word you use?
Mysticism.
No, that I know.
Information.
Information, yes sir. That is the word I can understand. On mysticism, I have already spoken in response to a question sent by some English gentleman who was deeply interested in Islam and who had written to me, and that cassette is available.
And about the gradation this Kutub course, whether they are recognized or...
I have already spoken generally on these things. Yes, please. Yes, please.
Discussing with a Christian, I talked about their belief man born in sin. I was wondering if the pre-Christ literature mentions and brings it such a fundamental principle of faith.
Nowhere.
I tried tried to find out if we could get the Jewish books. I went to one or two libraries. I could not even get a Old Testament. They are available, but they are all published by the Christians. I know
the only thing, in fact, whatever they believe is ultimately based on the Torah. And all the references ultimately lead to the book of the first book in creation, book of creation, what's the name? Genesis, and the following books. So there you find a mention that Adam committed a crime against God, that is sin. And he was led to that crime through Eve, his wife, or his spouse, maybe they were married or not married. This is a debatable question. And that was ultimately, she was implied to make him commit sin against God by Satan in the form of a snake who approached her and deceived her. This is the theory. And as a result, the punishment was announced there and then. The punishment would be that from now on, the woman would bear children with pain, and one will have to employ labor for his living, earn with the employment of labor, not easily like they lived in gardens with Eden, in such ease and comfort without working for anything. They were provided abundantly by God. So that was the background of this punishment. But all right, from now on, you have to earn your bread. You have to earn your living. These were the two punishments announced. And they were announced for the entire posterity of human beings till the last day of their life. So no question of sin being inherited is mentioned there. The punishment being inherited is mentioned in so many words. So the Christians gave it a different term, although they base the belief on this incident quoted by the Bible, but they gave it a different term. They say what was inherited was sin. So everyone was born a sinner. Now if they base this on the same verse of the Bible, then they must follow the consequences as well and accept them. In that case, the sin punishment relationship is mentioned in totality. It should remain such. And if it can be changed, then prove it that it has been changed by the appearance of Jesus Christ. So because the punishment continues, the sin, if this is the reason of everybody being born a sinful person, then you have to accept that nothing has changed since the coming of Jesus Christ. Because the punishment continues, the sin must be there. Apart from that, I don't see any reference of inherited sin in any book or any religion.
This was my idea. This is such a basic and fundamental thing that the prophets before Christ, like the unity of God, and the coming of the prophets, the proper coming after the periods, all those things are mentioned, and such a basic thing is not mentioned. I was wondering whether there might be something.
But the basic on this,
Thank you.
Yes, any other question, please? Yes? You can come before Mr. Bashir rises and occupies the floor for good.
Referring back to the topic of the spiritual advancement and suffering in its proper context, could it be the case that God might grant a person some type of trial to ensure his spiritual progress, and if we pray for the removal of that trial and for the removal of that distress, we're in fact praying for the removal of a gift from God?
I tell you one thing, that suffering is a very vast subject which should be treated from the various angles. And in this context, the answer is that suffering is always a trial. I mean, it is never accidental, it's a part of the scheme of things and it is used as a trial. If you study biology, study life as it progressed, and study the theory of evolution, you may not agree with certain aspects of that theory, but you must agree that suffering has played the most important role, because all the urge to have something, to create something, to adapt to something was created by suffering. So suffering itself is a trial, and this is how the Holy Quran treats it. So I'll come to the second part of the question later on, but first let's understand suffering in relationship to trial. There is no suffering which is not a trial. Every suffering is a trial for the ultimate good of the whole universe. The Holy Quran says in so many places, for instance, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Bala is literally translated as trial. So the Holy Quran says that Allah has created life and death to try you. Whoever is fittest for survival, asana amala, according to his actions and his deeds, whoever is best for survival. So what is life and what is death? There can't be drawn a sharp line between life and death, that suddenly life and death separate. The fact is that the suffering, as diluted, becomes life. And on the other end, it becomes death. There are thousands of stages between life and death. And as you travel towards one end, you become more and more full of life. As you travel towards another end of the same, say, road, you approach death. This is suffering, in between whatever it is. If you turn your face towards life, easing of suffering, you call it life. If you turn your face towards increasing of suffering, that is death. The same thing will be life, for instance, if somebody is suffering from extreme headache. Even if there is 10% relief, he feels so happy, so relieved. That is life to him, he is gaining some life. But a person who is not suffering, if he is put into his state of mind, he would almost die with the trouble and torture of that pain. Because he is traveling in the wrong direction, from life to death. So all this is trial. Now this trial, similarly, people of faith as well as people of lack of faith are put naturally to such problems, such trials. Nature takes its course without sparing anyone. Some come out fairly well in the sight of God, and some fail and just cannot cope with the trial in the way that Allah wants them to do. So those travel from spiritual life to spiritual death, and the first group travels from spiritual death to spiritual life. So when the religious people talk of this as a trial, this is what they mean. Not that only the religious people are given suffering for the sake of trial. This is a larger phenomena through which entire humanity is passing. The whole life is passing, in fact. Some fare well materially, they evolve. Some fare well spiritually, they become religiously alive and evolve in that direction.
Yet we're never told what type of animal was used, so should we avoid this food?
If you can, you should avoid, but it is not categorically forbidden, because it is not encouraged to remain in doubts, to remain in the shadows of suspicions. This is not what Islam teaches you. Our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam discouraged this, because this in itself is a crime. If you knew where evil lay, you avoid it. If you could get something about which you knew there was no evil, you must accept it. But if you don't have that best opportunity, then in between the clear goodness and the evil, the stages which are unknown can be utilized. But try to achieve the very best from whatever is available until you reach the point of the forbidden. So stop there.
Thank you. My last question I'd like to ask today. Where is it prophesied that the promised Messiah will come in the beginning of the 14th century of Islam? I've never been able to find this.
No, it is not to mention like this, Absalom. This is a pet subject of Holy Ghostman Messiah. His palms were itching when you started this question. So if you sit with him, he will show you some places where he believes this has been mentioned in clear terms, and about which I believe it is not mentioned in clear terms. But through inference, of course, you can draw certain inferences. Number one, the very fact that he is called Messiah, Jesus, that indicates that he should come in the 14th century, because the similarity with Jesus Christ demands that he should have, if possible, the same century allotted to him. For instance, it is told that very clearly that Messiah would come in the latter days. And at the end, it is also told clearly in the Holy Quran that Moses, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had a similarity to Moses, and that similarity is really clearly worked out and accepted by all the scholars of Islam. And then it is predicted that also Jesus will come. Another similarity. So to what extent that similarity is extended, this is to be investigated. Is it possible for Jesus Christ of the second age to appear exactly as the Jesus Christ of the first age appeared? Why not? It is possible, because there is similarity. And when you study your history correctly, you will be surprised to find that Jesus Christ came after about 1300 years from Moses. He was the prince of the 14th century of Judaism. So, there is a likelihood at least, you should accept it. And that likelihood is our inference, but is basically mentioned in the scriptures, in the traditions of the Holy Prophet of Islam. So it's not just imagination. There are two different things. I say, well, it's not categorically said, but of course it is said that he would be like Jesus Christ. So much so that he is given the very name of Jesus Christ. And this phenomenon should be understood. When the likeness increases and occupies almost every sphere, then sometimes you give the name without saying he is like somebody. If somebody excels in the art of writing dramas to a degree where he is almost equal to Shakespeare, then you won't say he is like Shakespeare, you will say he is Shakespeare of this century, Shakespeare of this age, and so on and so forth. So that also shows that the likeness which was predicted was to cover a very large area, not just a temporary transient likeness belonging to a small field, but a very durable and a likeness covering a very large field. So this likeness we have already seen. Again, there are traditions of the Holy Prophet which indicate that Messiah would come in the 14th century. That hadith, कौन सी किताब की? अल्लाह अबू धाबी तो याद है आपको पूरी? अलाया तो हमारा मैथन तो याद है. Anyway, there are certain traditions which he has the original with him, original, the photostats of the original. You will go and examine them, which mention, broadly speaking, the possibility of his appearing at the end of the 12th century from Ahad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That is 12th century बनती है तो बाद में आता है.
centuries तो 1000 के बाद
1000 साल के बाद 200 साल उसके बाद फिर 13वीं सदी आयात में दाखिल कर देते हैं, तब जाके 12वीं सदी पहुंचेंगे. तो एक सदी का फर्क है ना.
13वीं सदी नाम और 14वीं नाम.
So again we see inferences, possibilities, but it is not said in so many words that he would appear exactly on the 14th century. My best claim is that this should be studied from the point of view of his being similar to Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. And a clinching proof of that is that when 13th century ended and the 14th was about to begin, at that time, according to those who do not believe in Isa to be that Messiah, not only that Messiah did not come, but no Mujaddid came either. So that century, according to them, went totally empty, without any appearance. So that shows that they did not recognize the coming of the right one, because they didn't see in that direction from which he was to come. So this later appearance of somebody on the appointed time of 13th century, 14th century, which was a general phenomenon explained by Ahad also indicates that our interpretation is correct. The 14th century was for Messiah. If he did not come, nobody would come. We believe he has come, so the gap is filled. They believe nobody has come, so even their ordinary Mujaddid has not come. And since then it is repeating itself. There are no Mujaddid appearing for the 15th century either. That means once you miss a trend, you miss it once and for all. No, but it is not necessary anyway for the time of the 14th century to be mentioned. How it came into being, that is the question. Why should they demand from us that show us where the 14th century is mentioned? Because they themselves had been saying it. They were ulama of the old, godly people of course, very scholarly people of course. Although they did not base it on a very categorical information, but they again inferred from certain traditions, or sometimes they were shown, perhaps revealed by Allah. But century after century, the old Muslim scholars were predicting that Messiah would appear or Mahdi would appear on the head, that is the beginning of the 14th century. And this is what they were themselves believing in. This is exactly what they hoped for. So this is why the Ahmadis took up this issue. Not that they had invented it, because they said so, so the question should be returned to them. Why did you say? Why did you expect the Messiah to appear on the head of the 14th century? If you did, then here he is. So when this comes, you demand him. This is the correct perspective of this entire question. It was not started by Ahmadis at all. It was started by them. So much so that by the close of the 14th century, at the end of it, there were debates between Ahmadis and certain Mullahs who said that the head does not mean that he should appear right in the beginning. He would appear before the end of the century, anyway. Once I myself debated this issue with normally a highly educated person. I couldn't expect this behavior from him. He was the headmaster of a school in Gillingham. It was in 1981. And I think slightly earlier, when did the century end according to the Christian era?
1981.
But it was just a few, yes, October, it was just about 2 months to 3 months before that. I visited Master Abdul Halim Sahib, who was the president Amir of Jilin in those days, and he had invited certain friends for frank discussions, like we used to hold discussions, question answer sessions. So one of the present was the headmaster of a high school, who was double MA, highly educated, and he was a Shia. So this question of 14th century came up, and because he had believed and so his elders had said so, so he took the side on this issue with me against others. But when I said to him, so where is that Imam or that Messiah who had appeared? He said, yes, the century is not yet entered. You will see. I said, just 2 months of that, and you still call it head, where will be the tail and the body? If that is the head, there has to be a sizable, according to the size of the head, there should be a corresponding body and tail. So, well, no, I don't believe in that. I believe that the century will not end before Messiah comes. So I said, already 2 months are left. He said, well, look here, I tell you, even if the last day comes, that day will not end. Even if 100 years pass, that day will not end. That was the logic of the Mullah. And once that century is completely over, gone overboard, now they turn back and demand from us where is the proof. This is still logic. Yes.
Studying biblical prophecy concerning the second coming of Jesus, he stated there would be many false prophets and many false Christs. And studying the last century, I know of 5 claimants to be the prophet or the Unitarian Christ. Joseph Smith, Mormon Church, Ali Baba, who was out of the height faith, is a person who came out Alexander Nelly. What is Alexander?
These movies, they believe also in... Don't they?
Yes. I don't know, I'm speaking a little bit here.
Yes.
And why is
so many, in fact, those Islamic books mention so many. The question is, if the false prophets appear, they don't have to be a few dozens. Even if 3, 4, 5 appear as we have just counted, aren't they not enough?
Will you multiply? That's what my question was. My question was going to be, have you all getting more than the 5 that I stated?
The question is irrelevant. Even if there were 5 or less than that, even if there were 3, some false prophets have appeared, that's enough. So when that means when false prophets begin to appear, then search for the true ones. That was the message. So because there are already false prophets in the market, so there has to be somewhere a true prophet as well. That is the only benefit we can draw from this prophecy, and you should draw from this.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
Let's start, sir. Sheikh Hassan is getting very restive now. I'm sorry. Please. Ask him outside, maybe.
The taking profit at a prefixed rate becomes an interest.
Or they will shift into a different prophet. What sort of prophet is coming this time? Must be a false prophet.
That becomes interest, which is of course disallowed in Islam. But we find God Almighty has fixed His share at 2.5% in zakat. How do we reconcile with that?
To have a fixed share is not wrong. Who's told you this? When you go to trade, you have 10% profit on your commodity. Who told you this is wrong? Where is Islam defined usually in your terms? Nowhere. And apart from that, there is no similarity even otherwise. Allah asks you to part with your money. Like you can ask any friend to part with his money if he loves you or you love him. So that is a different type of bargaining. If you ask a friend, please give me 10% of your income, you ask your father, mother, anybody who is close to you, would that become an interest? It's not at all that. Anyway, it's a very brilliant idea. If nobody has to ask a question, I'll permit Mr. Bashir. I think this is a threat I'm going to carry. All right, Bashir, sir. You see? This is just the beginning. We maybe have full of questions. But we have so many topics. I'm sorry. All right, Bashir, just one question. Because there is a question from the side as well. Who will do it? From both sides. Right hand.
Tides, rain, wind, and clouds are the natural phenomena.
What was that last?
Tides, rain, wind, and clouds are the natural phenomena which affect the lives of all people. Guru Hazur most kindly explained how the above phenomena in the religious terms has affected the history of nations.
What an interesting question. Now I understand when you said in religious terms, you perhaps mean when this phenomena was employed by religion. Is that what you mean?
No.
So please explain yourself because I can't understand this question.
So I explain the first one, tides. For example, Hazrat Moses alayhi salam, when he was followed by the Pharaoh, he was able to cross the river because the tides were low. And when the tide was high, the Pharaoh came and drowned.
So this is exactly what I said. When this phenomenon is related to religion, that is what you mean?
Yes, sir. Yes.
You would have asked.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
You said no, yes. So you already know the answer as well. Right away, it is disclosed.
There should be some more.
You can tell me more about it, please.
I don't know any more.
Shift from life to life.
I don't know any more of.
You are doing masla, that's all.
I don't know any other side affair. I don't know any other side affair which affected.
All right, leave it alone then. No other type did, let's say. But shift to the second phenomena. Rain. Did you start this right?
I know the background, that's why I found that question.
Tell me.
I wanted to from Hazur to explain, elaborate more on. I wanted to know more on.
I agree. But the fact is that as far as this question is concerned, all these aspects are commonly known to every human being, everybody in fact in reality. that sometimes they are related to religious phenomena. So why to waste time on this? Shift to your second question. I mean everybody knows the answer.
Would I not be one question on?
No, ask the second question not because the first has dropped. It is related.
Will Muslims slaughter a sheep, a goat, a cow, or a bull after Eid al-Adha? Would Huzur most kindly advise us what other animals could be slaughtered as Qurbani apart from the above mentioned animals?
Give me a list of the animals and I'll tell you which one.
I just mentioned
These are already slaughtered, you are accepting. You start with the fact that these animals were slaughtered. And which others could be slaughtered, this is the question.
Yes.
So I am asking you to help me with the list of some of the animals, so I will pinpoint which ones are looking is not.
I will say camel, the camel.
Camel has been in the Holy Quran? Already? Is it already on the list?
There are so many other animals.
Yes, come some.
Horse.
Horse should not be slaughtered, it's not made for this purpose.
Goat.
Goat will be
A bull.
bull can be, of course, this is part of the same. Cow and bull are one and the same thing.
And the buffalo to keep at home.
That's all the same thing. That can be slaughtered in the same category of the noun.
Not mentioned others.
So thank you, that's it. I think we are going to slaughter this time for the entire London demand. We have a short supply of animals, so we're searching elsewhere for different varieties. Why not catch some deer as well? Deer can be slaughtered.
Deer can be slaughtered, reindeer.
Because in the Holy Quran you can draw your inferences from certain injections of Holy Quran. In the Holy Quran it is said that while you are in Ihram, you are not permitted to kill any game, that is birds or deer, etc., the wild game. You are not permitted by the Holy Quran to shoot or to use any weapons to kill animals for consumption. Now, if you do it, then the Holy Quran tells us that the punishment for that should be a sacrifice of an animal which is similar to nature to that animal which you have killed. For instance, if somebody has shot a deer, his punishment would be to sacrifice a goat instead. If somebody had shot a wild bull, the sacrifice would be to offer in sacrifice, the punishment would be to offer in sacrifice a tame bull, and so on and so forth. If somebody has killed a wild fowl, a chicken for instance, or a hen would be the answer to this. So the principle is laid down clearly that you can judge according to the similarities in features. Perhaps if that principle is extended to no question in general, a deer could also fall into the category of goat and sheep, because generally they are supposed to be the same thing. Similarly, some wild animals which are eaten, if they are closer to a cow, they should stand a replacement for the cow, and llamas, if they are eatable, giraffe, they could stand and replace, for instance, camels and so on and so forth. So this is possible to extend the list of those. On this principle, I mean.
This is going to happen and that this must happen. But surely, sir, we can avoid this When I say surely we can avoid, if other Jewish people could avoid a calamity, surely we could do that as well. And how we could do is, let us pray for these people.
See, that is a very weird phenomena. I don't see symptoms of that appearing in this world today. It's very wicked in God's world. You know, the people of Jonah were a very special people, a great exception to the general law. This is why they have been so favorably mentioned by the Holy Quran. But the people living around you, in the West or in the East as we know them, they're so different from the people of Jonah. Haven't you had enough experience with the mullahs that are preaching in the day? Are there the time?
Well, we pray for them and put them right.
Well, you can try your hand at it. No harm. But I assure you, this is not something, this is beyond your power of prayer. And as I said, this does not fit into the scheme of things revealed by the Holy Quran. So my answer is simply this. I don't say that prayers can bring about revolutions, but for that also you have to be a revolutionary spiritual person yourself. To seek revolution through prayer, you have to be that type of person in sight of Allah. And such a person we have just seen a century ago, who appeared and who is left. And he himself has predicted this reality. So what will your prayer or my prayer go against that? All the prayers he made to Allah went to him were tried once he was told by Allah that this is the fate. Just don't live in idealism. Face the realities.
I've been praying until last night, but I'm going to stop.
Just pray in the amendment form as I have just mentioned, with the amendments which I have suggested. You will still continue to pray to Allah for lessening of suffering, for mitigating the disaster and troubles, and to save good people wherever they are, and to shorten the trial and to hasten the process of the fruit for which we are waiting at the end of the trial, and so on. This prayer can, of course, be begged over.